the Madman! Welcome to the top cards of Custom Hearthstone. Very exciting because BlizzCon is coming up and soon we'll be reviewing actual real cards. So we start with yet another flashy creation of Custom Hearthstone because the way to get all the upvotes is, of course, to create a hero legendary card with crazy abilities. Medivh the Accursed. 9 mana, Battle Cry, shuffle 5 random mage spells and 5 random warlock spells into your deck, which means it can be played in both mage and warlock. Your hero power becomes based on which class you were at the beginning, mage or warlock, either starting as Cursed Tap if you start as warlock, draw 1 card, improved by damage dealt to hero this turn, which means if you took 2 damage this turn, then you draw 3 cards, and then tapping 1 hero power refreshes to the other one. So then it becomes Cursed Fire Blast, 2 mana, deal 2 damage, improved by spell damage. And then if you use that, you actually even get the Cursed Tap back. Wow, so you could spend a whole turn just tap, blast, tap, blast, tap, blast if you wanted to. Now, I think this suffers from a classic case of, okay, you created enough of a cool card. Whoa there! You don't have to go full crazy with throwing the improved by effects also well on that. So first thing I would do to this card, chop off those parentheses on the hero powers. Improved by damage dealt to hero this turn, improved by spell damage. Let's simplify it, let's make it actually sane. Because it's a plenty cool card already, you're like flipping cards all the time, your hero power is switching each time. You can play it in both mage or warlock, it's crazy. Because of the current insanity of the card, I'm going to give the card just about 4 stars. I probably normally would have given it lower, but I like the way that this dual class card looks like, and I feel like there should be more of that someday. And I feel like this is about the design that it should take. It's pretty clear that this is both a mage and a warlock card. And there are a lot of cards throughout the game that are spells, that are perhaps minions, that could fit between 2 different classes. Balance also 4 stars. I'm going to give the asterisk that this card probably won't be played. Well, Frostlich Jaina and Blood Reaver Gul'dan are in the meta, because both of the Death Knights do the late game better. But I think that when those Death Knights rotate out, Medivh the Accursed has a place in both mage and warlock, as this ability is really good in the late game in control v control value games. The Living Mountain. 9 mana, 3/15 elemental. Taunt. This minion takes 4 spaces on the board and isn't destroyed by destroy effects. I think taking up 4 spaces on the board isn't that big a drawback, though really we're looking at the 9 mana 3/15 taunt and can't be destroyed by a bunch of things, which is a little bit spooky, a little bit strong. Design wise, 4 stars. I think that there might be a fundamental problem with the way that this is designed, in the same way that Sogoth was very carefully designed to be on the weaker side because there are some decks that can't just deal with it. This also shuts down a lot of counterplay. It's possible that a bunch of control decks cannot deal with the card if they can't destroy it. Therefore, the balance of this card I'm going to give 3 stars. I think the health is way too high on it, and there is a way to balance it, but I think the design is still suffering even if the card is balanced, in that there are a few classes that even with a nerf of, I propose something like 3 or 4 health, or even 5 health, it should be like a 312, 311, 310, somewhere in that range. Few classes still can't deal with that just because they need to destroy these high health minions to actually kill it. There's also further the problem that as a neutral card and as a 3 attack card, I don't think it can be printed until after Master Oakheart rotates out, because if you're using Master Oakheart to pull the Living Mountain as well as 2 other big cards out, that might be a bit too strong. Another card that occupies more spaces on the battlefield came out the same week. 3-legged Thing. 2 mana, 3/3 beast, occupies 3 spaces on the battlefield, and the author pictured something like this as how it would look, which means that in a picture like this, it would be pretty clear that adjacent minions, there are no adjacent minions to this card because it's blocked off by those paw prints, so to say. Main problem with this card? It's a 2 mana 3/3. I don't think Hearthstone is ready for it yet. I don't think that occupying 3 spaces on the battlefield is much of a drawback at all. This is like a tiny drawback. In fact, some might even argue that could be a positive because it is keeping adjacent minions away from the 3-legged thing. So design 3 stars, I don't think there's much to explore in here. Balance 3 stars, and it's a really hesitant 3-star in the sense of, really it should be lower, but it's only like 1 stat off, so it's like, eh. I think fundamentally a 2-mana 3/3 should not be in the game of Hearthstone, but this could be a 3-mana 4/4. I think Hearthstone is ready for a 3-mana 4/4 with a minor drawback, or even vanilla. And this card has such a minor drawback that it could just fit at 3-mana 4/4. That's fine. Next up, we've got Froot, the Forgotten Mage. 4-mana hero for Mage, which comes with a permanent spell damage +1 as long as you're Froot. The hero power is Magical Touch. 2 mana deals 0 damage, improved by spell damage, which means that it will do always at least Fire Blast damage because you're always going to have that spell damage +1. So the question when you're looking at a card like this ultimately comes to how powerful is a permanent +1 spell damage for the entire game? And my thoughts are that it is powerful. Too powerful to be only 4 mana, because I'm evaluating the 5 armor from the hero power as worth roughly about 1.5 mana. So I think that the card should be 6 mana. It's a problem in tempo mage, it's potentially a problem in mid-range mages. Just spell damage +1, it's powerful when you cannot remove it. So design 5 stars, I think that it can be balanced at the right amount of mana. Balance 2 stars, I think the right amount of mana is possibly 6 mana. And quite possibly 7 mana also, because I didn't even touch on the Magical Touch hero power, which is improved by spell damage. That's strong also. Bards of Hallows End, a 2-mana Warlock Echo card, summon a random Hallows End Bard. You can either get Spook String, Heartbeater, Horror Teller, or Haunt Soul, and they have different flavors, different stats, different abilities, and they all interact with each other. Wow. Take all of that in. I'll give you a moment. Took me a while to take all of that in. And because of that, I learned something about this type of card. It's a nesting doll type of card. And custom Hearthstone as a whole, as well as designers as a whole, like, they need to be careful not to fall into the nesting doll trap, where they have so many different mechanics nested in one, and it's like, oh, it's a box, but what's in the box? It's another box, and hey, this box interacts with the first box, and this box interacts with the third box. And it's clever, and we all like to pat each other on the back for designing a cool nesting doll, but practically, there's way too much going on here. It's like, so many different cards, so many different ways this card can go, and in theory, that seems like a good idea, but in practice, it is a really bad card to play when you don't play multiple of, which I think fails as an echo design. You can high roll with it, you can low roll with it, and the high rolls and the low rolls really differ from each other here. Honestly, because it's so hard to grasp the probabilities of this, I can't even really assign an accurate balance rating to this card, but on a quick glance, it's like, I guess it looks like it would be kind of fair, maybe a little bit underpowered. It's one of those things where it doesn't really matter to me because the design is so off on it that I don't really want to spend the time to think about how balanced it is. Shadow Word Gluttony. 8 mana priest spell. Your opponent draws cards equal to your hand size. Clearly meant for a control priest where you will have 9 cards in hand and then you will Shadow Word Gluttony them, and then they will potentially burn 9 cards because maybe it's a control versus control matchup and they have 9 cards in their hand. Boy, would that feel bad, wouldn't it? So for that reason, design 1 star. It's such a, like, either it's terrible or it's great card. And is that a fun design? No. It is just a little bit too cruel and unusual. So the balance on this, a control priest which wanted to win the game against aggro, like, it would actually be, honestly, pretty hard to win with Shadow Word Gluttony. At the same time, though, when you're burning the combo pieces of combo and you're burning just cards from control, like, there are just 2 matchups where you practically just win the game with Shadow Word Gluttony. I'm just gonna say balance 1 star. I originally had it at balance lol, but the game is broken if this card is ever in. That said, there has been a way that actually made a card like this work in the past. Chat's reminding me of Warlock's Azari. And yes, indeed, if you hide this type of effect behind a 5-mana 2/2 and a 5-mana 3/3 and a 5-mana 4/4 and a 5-mana 5/5 and a 5-mana 6/6 and then have to pay 10 mana for it, then yeah, a card like this is okay. But this by itself, no. Merkbeth, 6-mana 3/2 Murloc, which summons the 3 witches, which are Murlocs, which give you a Lightning Storm, a Crushing Hand, and a Healing Rain on death. Ignore the bad templating, and the fact that the third one doesn't say Murloc, it should. Ultimately, it summons 4 guys for 6 mana, which total up to 6/5 in stats, and they're all Murlocs. And it gives you 3 pretty good cards for a control Shaman. So you ask yourself, is a 6 mana 6/5, which kind of draws you 3 good cards, balanced? No, it is not. Furthermore, this is another Nesting Doll deck. So what are the 3 witches? What's a Lightning Storm? What's a Crushing Hand? What's Healing Rain? Like Lightning Storm, fine, that's a classic card. But Crushing Hand and Healing Rain, especially when those cards rotate out, what are those cards? Do you remember exactly what the mana cost and overload cost on Crushing Hand is? Do you remember exactly how much Healing Rain heals for? And certainly in 1 year, when those cards rotate out, or like in 2 years, it would be like, oh man, I really don't remember what those cards do. So that's a problem, design 1 star. Balance 2 stars, especially with the Murloc tags and the stats and the cards, it's just too much. Perfect Forgery, a rogue spell, 5 mana, add a copy of your hand to your hand. This does really insane things, especially when you perfect forgery a perfect forgery, because that allows you to go infinite. And also, the high roll of this card is that you have 5 cards in your hand after you cast perfect forgery. And that's an easy enough situation to set up. You're going to have that happen. So 5 mana, draw 5 cards. But it's better than draw 5 cards because it's copy 5 cards, and you're going to set up your hands that you copy really good cards. Is that too powerful at 5 mana? Absolutely, because draw 5 should not cost 5. It should cost something like 8, because sprint costs 4. So the card is way off balance. Furthermore, there is preparation to worry about. Preparation, forgery into forgery. Get some counterfeit coins, go potentially infinite. It gets pretty crazy. And the author came back and said, alright, how about we make a 4 mana legendary card with add a copy of your hand to your hand. Oh my god! That's even worse in terms of balance. 4 mana, add a copy of your hand to your hand? Wow. But yes, this could be a good idea for a legendary card. But no, the cost should not be 4, the cost should be still something like 8, just because copying 5 cards from your hand is a lot of value. I like the idea of the card enough that even though in the obvious flaws in design, I'll still give the design 4 stars, because I think the concept of forging your hand is really cool. There were steps made. I think the legendary step might be good enough. It does seem like a really flashy effect, suitable of a legendary spell. Balance, 1 star. And finally we have Dark Soulstone, Warlock card. Custom Hearthstone loves the Echo idea, because boy do they just love seeing their card played over and over again, I guess. 1 mana, Dark Soulstone, deal 1 damage to a minion and to your hero. The drawback is a little bit concerning because Amethyst Spellstone exists, so the drawback isn't that big a drawback. In fact, it just finishes your Amethyst Spellstones. And perhaps what's more concerning is the fact that you can play it over and over again is you set up the perfect Defile board. So, yikes. Even if that might not be too strong, because it's a lot of work to fit in both this and Defile in your deck, and in fact cards like Tainted Zealot is not strong enough to include, so maybe Soulstone isn't that big of a problem. But actually Soulstone lets you set things up even better than Tainted Zealot, because you just nick that one for 1, you wound that other one for 2, and then suddenly your Defile hits everything perfectly. It's very spooky. Even if it's not that balanced, boy, would that be a nightmare for just the casual player. It feels super unfair, and it would feel so gloomy to be dealing with this. So design 2 stars. It might have the potential to be printed after Defile rotates out. I will suggest that much at least. Balance 4 stars in the sense of, yeah, it's not that strong, I suppose. You would have to cut something out from Warlock, and it's not like you can really increase the mana cost. You can't really increase the pain. It is a pain to put in a card that on its own isn't that strong. It's like, yeah, okay, kind of close enough. So there's your custom Hearthstone cards of the week. interesting ones, and I'm glad that we could talk about this nesting doll thing as well as overcomplication in custom Hearthstone. I'm really looking forward to reviewing real cards next week, as well as we're going to start to see custom Hearthstone come up with new ideas for the expansion. That should be really exciting to see too. And that was a good sound off point, but for some reason my hands had decided to, do this. Whatever, it's fine.